Hey y'all, welcome back to Weighing In with Lindsie. I am joined this week by my cousin Eve.
Hello.
Welcome. We are on week 2 of a series about addiction, and Eve has gone through her own journey, and I wanted to have her on and share her story with us.
Well, I have my story starts really early, and if we've got 3 or 4 hours, I can go through all of it. I probably
Well,
don't
let's
have
not go
that
that
much
far.
time, but I can hit some high parts, or rather, well, yeah, high parts.
Yep, there you
Um,
go. We got the
I grew
highs
up in
and
a
lows.
I grew up in an alcoholic family. My mother was married 5 times. She met every one of them in a bar. Well, except for the second one, which was a neighbor, but all alcoholics, which meant all their social group were alcoholics, which meant mostly what they did was drink. And so I was around it very early, very comfortable with it, even though it brought with it all the classic textbook alcoholism issues, violence, sexual violence, screaming, yelling, hitting. All of those things came with probably just about every husband. Our house was always full of strangers, and which there were 2 young girls there and a boy, and probably wasn't the best environment for us. But I don't know. Somebody asked me once, why do I think I started using? Because the first thing I started using was we had some hippie neighbors in some apartments, and they did something called THC, and it was a little red pill, and you popped it in your mouth, and then you just kind of flew. So my sister and I did that. We were probably about 12
Wow.
when that started. And of course, I started smoking when I was 12, which is a really bad addiction. Probably hardest one to quit, I would think, of all the things I have quit in my life.
No, smoking cigarettes, is that? Okay.
Smoking cigarettes. Smoking pot was something I never did do. I've probably done it twice in my life, but I didn't like any drug that made you tired.
Okay.
You know, my thrill was always being excited, being up. So I do remember several times, once with one of my mother's husbands, and once with my real father, that I drank. I stole their alcohol with my little girlfriends. But I don't think I really had any major issue till I went to high school, and then it was so prevalent. Not only the drugs, the people smoking pot, everybody there smoked pot, but me, but the cigarettes. When I went to high school, we actually had a smoking area where you could go out and the kids could smoke, and teachers would come out there and
Wow.
smoke too. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah. And the teachers would walk by us, and we'd all be out there smoking. And the only time they ever said anything is if you were late for class, or if they needed a cigarette, they might bum one. But then, when I was 17, my father went to prison. Now, right before that, I guess, is when I had really started drinking. My boyfriend at the time did not go to my school, and he sold drugs. And so I started using cocaine. I started using it a lot. And I started using alcohol to the point where I was always the last one with a drink in their hand. Everybody else would have stopped but me. And then in my 20s, I got a DUI. It didn't do a thing. It could be mainly because when I got the DUI, I wasn't particularly drunk. I'd had 2 glasses of wine, and I knew I had driven when I couldn't see and never got caught. But I was so tickled that this little cop in the middle of the day, and back then it wasn't a big deal. You paid a fine and took a class, and you were right back on the road. But somewhere around 25, it got serious, and I was spending every dime that I had extra on cocaine. I was using probably 5 out of 6 days, and it was expensive back then for what money meant back then, but I was also making good money back then, so it wasn't really a problem. And I was surrounded by people who used, and people who smoked pot and did coke and drank. And there were so many times when I could have made different choices, let's say, and I just didn't. And somebody asked, well, why? Why did you drink? Did you not want to be yourself? Did you not? I just don't think I ever knew who myself really was. I just wanted to be somebody.
And when you're
And
around it all the time, that's all you know.
Yeah, and when I
Yeah.
drank, I was happy and funny, and I made people laugh, and they always wanted me there when they were drinking because I was going to make jokes and be funny and be fun, and that's kind of where my personality kind of started. Although years later in therapy, they told me that's when my personality stopped because I became the person that I was when I was high, and whoever I was before that, that's when they stopped growing.
Hmm.
So that was kind of interesting.
That's deep.
And I didn't really have any training of how to handle life.
Mm-hmm.
I had watched dysfunction at its best, and I didn't know how to be a girlfriend. I didn't know how to be eventually a wife or a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to be a person, a member of society. I just knew what I had seen growing up. And that's not to blame at all on my family because lots of people grow up in alcoholism and don't become alcoholics. But I think it's a gene and I think it's in you. I've watched my siblings struggle. I've watched my mother could not drink because she had a bad stomach. I said that's the only thing that kept her from being alcoholic. 'Cause
Oh,
she
wow.
could only have one or two, and she'd get sick. But my dad certainly had issues with it. Most of his siblings had issues with it. So I do think when I was pregnant, long after I had quit drinking, one of the tests they ran me through was family to see what chances the baby had, and because I was an older mom. And after all the testing, what she said was, yeah, probably alcoholism is going to be an issue, some kind of addiction.
Mm.
Because they're all the same. Addiction is addiction. It's all
Yes.
the same.
Yes.
And a lot of people turn off one to turn on another one.
Yes.
And they're so proud that
Transference.
they've gotten rid of that addiction but they're right in the middle of another one.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally quit, which I was 28 when I went into treatment.
So you were young.
The day I went into treatment, I was at my husband's office, and I had not slept in 3 days. And I would lay down in bed like I was sleeping, and he thought I was sleeping. But as soon as he went to sleep, I got up, and I would stay up all night. And I was so out of it that I was looking at Highway 41, and I was thinking how easy it would be just to walk out there and get hit. And then I wouldn't have to worry about where I'm going to buy my drugs and where I'm going to get alcohol and how I'm going to pretend to be somebody that's lovable and deserves to be taking up space.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband's friend walked in, and he had not seen me in a year. And he took Harvey aside and he said, something's really wrong. You need to take her to the hospital. And he did. At the time, I was 5'10", and I weighed 90 pounds. But when you live with somebody every day, day in, day out, you don't notice it. But when somebody walks in and sees that, they're like, well, this guy thought I had an eating disorder. He had no idea that I just wasn't sleeping or eating.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at Kennestone, and they had a treatment center on the campus. And so I was there for 30 days. And I was treated by a couple, Mr. and Mrs. psychologist. And they would see me each one time a day. And you did the whole group thing where you painted pictures and all that stuff. And when it got to be close to my time to get out, they let me see Harvey. I hadn't seen him. I didn't see anybody. But at the last day, they brought him in because we were living together at the time and had been for 3 years and dated 3 years before that.
So were you
So-
married at this time?
No.
No. Okay.
No, we were still living together. And he would not have married me in the condition that I was in, no way. But so the psychiatrist set us down in a room, and it was a man and a woman, and the man looked at Harvey. He never spoke to me, and he said, she's an addictive personality. She will use again, and it will show up in other areas, and you do best to cut your losses. And that's what he said to Harvey.
Wow.
And it made me so angry that not only did I do 90 meetings in 90 days, I did a meeting a day, at least one meeting a day for a year, because I had to go back to see those people in a year. And when I went in at a year, and they were both there, and I was all puffed up, I did a whole year, you said I couldn't. And the man looked at me and he said, I knew that's what you needed. So he did it on purpose.
Wow.
Amen.
So you said you went because a friend. So is that something you wanted at the time? Is to get help and get better, or is that something that you feel like was kind of forced?
Somewhere in between those two things. I know I was really sick, and I knew I needed some help. I guess I didn't think it would be permanent. Like if I could just get through this episode, and then I wouldn't ever use again. How many people say that? And but when I got there and I was so physically ill, they actually kind of put me to sleep for 3 days, and she said that it was an involuntary admission because she said I could make a choice because of the condition I was in. So after 3 days, then I had to decide whether to stay or to go, and I said I'll give it a try.
Okay.
It was interesting. It was interesting to be around people for the first time in my whole life that just really seemed to care about me and what happened to me and focused on me.
Now, is Harvey a drinker or involved in in the drug use or anything?
I think it was the 70s, so I think everybody was.
It was.
In the 80s. It was kind of a social thing. But I will say, after I went into treatment, none of my best friend and Harvey never touched it again.
Okay.
And but they do. Everybody around me still drinks. I don't. I'm not around people who get drunk. So, I'm around people that actually know how to drink. Have a drink, glass of wine with dinner, and have that be enough. Because with me, that would never. I always thought, what was the point of having one drink?
Yes, that's how I was as well. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't taste good enough to just say, okay, I'm going to have one because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's expensive, and what was the point? But I just never thought, even the first year. One of the things about getting sober when you started as young as I did, you really don't have a personality, and you really don't know who you are. And so as the days and the months went by with no alcohol, I found myself just empty, dull, boring, just didn't have much interest in anything. And I had a sponsor, and she said, try something you've never tried before every day. She said, what kind of music do you listen to? And I told her, and she said, well, switch to country. Oh, I don't like country. Well, try it. So I found Randy Travis and became a big fan and listened to that for that first whole year.
I love Randy Travis.
I found an acting class, which I'd never done, no one in it that I knew, had to drive a good distance to go. I became comfortable going by myself to things. Before, it was always a group or a girlfriend or,
So you've never had a relapse, never?
No.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So many people have a different.
I have dreams that I drink.
Okay.
And on every anniversary, it comes up, 10-year, 20-year, 5-year. They tell you that in AA. You be careful of anniversaries because you feel like you got it handled. Oh, I didn't drink for 30 years, so I'm sure I'm fine. Well, you're not really fine.
Yeah.
My grandfather was a binge drinker, and he would drink until he couldn't drink anymore for days and hole up somewhere away from his family. And then he would get sober and stay sober for months. The only time I ever saw him as a child was when he came to stay with us because he was sober. And he'd be there every single day when we got home from school until he wasn't. And the day he wasn't, we all knew he had started drinking and gone home back to Tennessee.
Wow.
So it was just all he could do.
Yeah.
But alcoholism, like I said, it's a family event, and it went way up deep into my family. Both of my grandparents on my mother's side were alcoholics.
Yeah.
And it killed one of them, So.
And I've heard some people say, and I don't know if there's science behind this, but I've told my younger family, be careful, because I have several people, I can have a drink here and there. I don't like drinks. I'll never cross that bridge. And I've heard somebody say one time that there's a switch, in your brain that, you never know when that one drink is going to flip that switch, and then you can't turn it back off. And I don't know if you've heard that or have experience with that, but
Well, the way it was explained to me by a psychiatrist, if you have any doubt that you have a drinking problem, the easiest way to know, do you have rules about drinking alcohol? If you have to make rules, then you have a problem. If you have to say nothing after 6, nothing after 10, if you have to say only one glass, maybe 2 on a holiday,
Only on the
whatever
weekends.
your rules are, then that shows you your brain knows you have a problem. And people are so into health right now and getting better and stronger, and yet this one area just seems to elude people. It's expensive. It's bad for you. I mean, the sugar alone will cause your issues, and it's just it doesn't do a thing for your personality. But I will say, when you get sober through AA, they talk about a higher power. And when I grew up, my mother was an atheist, so
I didn't know that.
I just thought of it as a higher power. I didn't I didn't know anything about God. We had gone to church when we were kids because we'd be playing in the yard and the bus would come through and literally pick us up. During the summer, they had revival, and they'd pick every kid up you could find, and you'd go in the big tent, and they'd have cookies and lemonade, and you get saved, and you go home every summer. So that was my extent of my education. But then my husband's mother was a longtime member of a church here in Smyrna, Georgia, and I started going with her on occasion. And then I started going more regularly because she wanted to go, and she got elderly, and I would take her. And then I still wasn't quite getting it. I still didn't feel it. Now, I knew I had been saved. I knew I had been baptized. So that wasn't it. It was something else. I just wasn't connecting. And so we had Wednesday night suppers, and I went in there with my mom because she wanted to go. And we sat alone for weeks and weeks and weeks. And finally, once Wednesday, the choir director came and sat with us. And she said, "I need sopranos. Y'all are both sopranos." Oh, she didn't have a clue what we were. She just looked at us and went, "Y'all are sopranos." Which luckily we were. And she said, "I want you to come to choir practice. It's right after the meal." So we did. So Mom and I started coming to choir. Well, something about singing about God, singing music about Jesus. Something about that just really started to peel away that distrust that I had. That's one thing alcoholism does to you. You really don't trust anybody that hadn't been there because they just don't understand. And I'm guessing that's true with any addiction. It's hard for somebody who's never had an addiction to say, "Well, just stop doing it." Okay, I didn't try that. I should try that. But with God, He's tried it all. He knows it all. He's been there. He watches His children suffer. And I have since lost family members to alcoholism and watched them suffer. And the only saving grace is that they're in the arms of Jesus. And they're finally cured. I hear people say, "It's hopeless. I'm a hopeless alcoholic." And the answer is yes, you are. As long as you believe you are hopeless, you are hopeless. And I think at times I felt really hopeless. And then that Holy Spirit just gets in there and it says, no, we still need you here, and we still need you. And we have a plan, and you're part of it. And you need to open your eyes, pull up your big girl panties, look to the east, because that's where the answers are.
Yeah. Wow. So if you had to share anything with somebody that may be listening that's struggling or doesn't think that there's a way out, what would you say?
Well, I know we have a family member that's struggling right now. And I would say life is too short.
Yeah.
It's a big, beautiful life out there without being drugged and alcoholed and whatever your addiction is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful life. And you cannot see it outside of a bottle.
Yeah.
You just can't. If you're looking through alcohol, it's never going to look like it is.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the hardest things for me when I quit drinking was relaxing, because like everybody says, I'm just gonna have a drink and relax. I'm gonna drink a glass of wine and I'm gonna relax.
Yes.
Next thing I know, it never made me relax. It made me hyper. Um, but it usually does make people relax. But so it was really hard for me to relax after I quit drinking, and I had to be willing to try new things and do new things. And I got a little glimpse. If you get an entire year away from something that's killing you, you get a glimpse. God opens that curtain just a little bit and he says, look at how blue that sky is. Look at how good you feel. Look at that lake. Wouldn't you like to walk around it?
Yeah.
And look at your husband, or at the time, my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Look how he's still there.
And that's incredible. That's incredible.
And so once you get the little peek in, then you start saying, well, let's try this. I'm going to try this. This might be good.
And I will say I had about 4 years that I was a heavy drinker, and I was terrified of what that looked like to quit. But yeah, ever since when I did finally quit, that you're right, the experience in life without being numb or altered in any way is much different. And it's just, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world
even
when
with
you're outside.
cigarettes.
Yeah.
You know, you have to plan your life around a cigarette. I have a girlfriend that smokes, and we're going to a movie. She said, how long is the movie?
So yeah.
Because she couldn't go 2 hours without a cigarette, but she could go an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But I did the same thing when I smoked.
Yeah.
I was as addicted to it as anything else.
And and it's funny, I didn't, in last week's episode, I didn't even talk about smoking. I smoked for 10 years. And that was, to me, but it was so long ago, I kind of forgot about it, I guess, until you brought it up. And it's funny, though, because I still, every now and then, I'll smell a cigarette, and I'll be like, oh, that smells really good. And it doesn't. Like, it really doesn't if it's on you. Like, I'll get the fresh, like, when they're smoking, and I'm like, I remember, and it'll be kind of but then I think, okay, when it gets in your clothes, in your hair, in your car, like, it doesn't smell good. And neither does the alcohol. Neither does, that makes you stink, too, if you drink too much.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, cigarettes are one of the hardest things on the planet to quit, even more so than alcohol. I just lost a friend to lung disease from smoking, and he smoked right up until he died. He smoked pulling that cart with the thing in his mouth.
Well, my grandpa had, I can remember him sitting on the porch with his oxygen tank, smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, you're gonna blow up.
Yeah.
And he didn't care. Yeah, he didn't care. He said, I'm gonna die doing something I like. I was happy.
But that's also part of the problem when you try to stop doing something on your own that you've done a long time. Now, I went in a treatment center, and I had somebody hold my hand and walking me through it. But I didn't do that with cigarettes because I thought I could handle it. And then after quitting, a dozen times, I finally, like I said, went to got hypnotized. And, but it's hard because what you're going to go through is going to really suck. It's going to suck.
Yeah.
And you got to really be committed.
Yeah.
And it's like that light bulb will go off. You can quit 20 times and then finally one day say, yeah, I've had enough. And the light bulb goes off and you can do it. But until you get to that total 100% commitment point, you're just hurting yourself by going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Because every time you start smoking after you quit or start drinking after you quit, you see yourself as a loser. And every time you see yourself as a loser, then you build those on top of each other, and then you become hopeless. You get up here, and by that many losers, you're hopeless.
That's powerful. Yeah, I've never thought about it like that. Excuse me. But as far as addictions go, food addiction is a very, very hard addiction because you have to have food. You can't just quit that. But you do have to structure it and eat, eat healthy and make the right choices. But that's something that I've dealt with my whole life. I failed again. I failed again. I failed again. And it does it. I think psychology says you have to hear 10 attaboys for every one you screwed up to make it even. So when you tell yourself constantly you're a failure, I feel like that's probably even more
devastating.
More devastating. Yeah, because I mean, that's how you see yourself. It's hard to change.
Yep, it is, and you're just adding to that mental, I can't do this, when you try and fail. Now, I would ask, do any of your siblings have issues with addictions?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it is kind of in the water.
In the family. Yeah. So I tell my nieces and nephews all the time, just be careful. Just be careful. I'm not going to, I don't tell them not to do it, not because, again, to your point, you tell them not to, they want to.
They want to do it.
I just say, be careful.
It goes along with that. I will say this generation seems to be terrified of drinking and driving, which is good.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I drank and drive when, I hope God forgives me. I couldn't even see the lines. I didn't know there were lines.
They weren't there. You were on those back roads.
For years, I worked as a bartender, so I would get off work at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I drove home at 3 or 3:30, sometimes 4, and with a drink in my hand. Because to me, I just got off work, so I'd go home half lit, driving down the roads. But luckily, there's not a lot of traffic that time of day.
Yeah.
But drinking stories are interesting and they're funny, and I could tell you 1,000 of them. But the truth is, we glorify drinking. We glorify it in movies. We glorify it in old movies, new movies. It don't matter. Everybody drinks. Every TV show has a drink. Every TV show, when the person that's in the show gets stressed or angry or happy or whatever emotion, the first thing they do is go get a drink.
Yep.
And until that changes, until the normalcy of always the first thing you do is reaching for a drink, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's just not healthy.
Yeah. It's poison.
But yeah.
I mean, your body treats it as a poison. It wants to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they said, for a long time that 1 glass of wine is so good for the heart. Well, I just read an article yesterday that said, well, that's not exactly true.
Depends on who you ask.
A little more study, and it seems like that's probably not true.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know a lot of people who have this much wine anyway.
No.
No.
And there are other things that you can have that would have as much health benefit, if there's health benefit in that little glass of wine. Find something else that has as much benefit and doesn't have the negative, health. Because, with alcohol, it's a poison as much as it is helping anything. So find something better. If that's what you're going for is the health benefit, find an alternative.
Well, and there's 2 things you have to do to quit drinking. You have to quit drinking. Mm-hmm. You just have to stop. But the second thing is, what a lot of people don't do, is you need to find out what it's doing. Why do you feel the need to have a drink every day?
Yeah.
And that's what you need to fix. If you're so stressed out from your job that you can't get through it without getting trashed every night, then you need a different job.
Yes.
If your marriage means you got to start in the morning with alcohol in your coffee and go all day, might be time to get a counselor or look at some changes.
Yeah.
Because if you don't fix your reason, whatever it is, you can even just be a problem drinker, not necessarily an alcoholic if you're drinking because of some issue. But if you don't watch it, you will become an alcoholic.
Yes.
Because there is a switch, and you can't flirt with Mother Nature forever. She's going to say, oh, you like to drink a lot? Let's do it.
Yeah, let's just go all in.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on this show and sharing your story.
You're welcome.
And definitely, it's a powerful topic to talk about.
It is.
And
if you have any interest at all in quitting, There is an AA group. You can't swing a cat without
Yes.
hitting the AA group.
Yes.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
We have probably 10 of them going on in our church at any given time.
And if you're not okay with going in person, there are online groups that you can stay anonymous and still listen and talk. So there are definitely options.
And find a church. Find a
Absolutely.
church.
Yes. Yes. God is very important in any recovery story.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Eve. And I think with that, we can close out the show. And I will talk to you later.